Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Adam Anthony. I'm the Assistant Dean for Washington Semester Programs here at American University. I've been here just about a year. I actually have been in the world of helping students engage with Washington, D.C. It's now my 16th year doing this. I spent 15 years at William & Mary in Washington, and something I enjoy doing quite a bit. I think I'm very good at. And so I want to thank you for attending this webinar. A couple things, and then I'm gonna turn things over to my colleagues, and then eventually the students are here joining us, and then we'll have lots of time for Q&A. So the one thing I want to tell you first off is that like our webinar earlier today, we've got people from a lot of different groups here. All three of our Washington Semester programs, our mentorship program, our GAP program, and our Washington Semester program, we have students from all those. I think we might have some parents as well, and we might end up having some consultants and some school counselors. So we've got quite a mix here. So the one thing I want to tell our students is, our current students and our potential students, if you have questions about the program, how program details are going to work, or feel free to contact us offline. We really want to take advantage of having our students here who are experienced in doing remote internships to be able to answer your questions. And again, let me reiterate for those of you who are considering or doing our program, there are indeed in-person internships that are going to be available for you. It's hard to say how many, but the reason why we're doing this this webinar and these series of webinars is because we recognize that the immediate future, and maybe the mid-future, and maybe even for all time, is going to the ability for you to come up to speed on how to manage a remote internship is going to benefit you in your career immediately and in the future. And so we feel like it's important to have employers and have students start laying out the rules of the road. Our students here are some of the pioneers for this, and we think the more that you can listen and benefit from it, the better off you'll be. So again, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to let my colleagues here introduce themselves. Tara, why don't you start?
Okay, hi everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Terrell Austin, and I'm the Partner Relations Director for the Washington Semester Program, and I also work with GAP students managing the inquiries. And thanks for coming.
Amy?
Thanks so much. I'm Amy Morrill-Bijot, and I work with students and employers both to make sure that we have a great match for excellent internships every fall, spring, and summer within our unit of our School of Professional Extended Studies, for mentorship with GAP, and our summer program in Washington Semester.
Hi everyone, my name is Marissa Whitaker, and I'm the Enrollment Associate for the Washington Semester Programs. I work with WSP students throughout the application process, and I work with our GAP students at the end of the application process through the interview and some of the career development once they've been admitted. So see a couple familiar names here. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Good, okay. Well, all right, so the way it's going to work is Terrell's going to take over from here and first introduce Amy. Amy's going to have a few comments just about our process for internships, and then we'll hear from the students. And then if you have questions during the presentation, you'll see at the bottom that Q&A button. Please remember to use that. You can type things as they pop into your head, and we'll try to answer them offline, but particularly once we finish, our students each have a few things to say, and once they finish, then we'll dedicate things to Q&A and really take advantage of the opportunity to learn from students who are doing this right now, to ask any question you care to. All right, Terrell, take it away.
All right, just a little background. As you all probably know, our spring students all went home mid-semester, which meant that internships had to go online. And as that wrapped up, we got positive feedback. We weren't sure how it would go, and we heard from our students that it had gone really well. Then there was a sort of avalanche of bad news late spring, saying that student opportunities were drying up right and left, that internships were being canceled all across the country. And this was, you know, terrible news. We knew our students had had a good experience. And in the middle of all the bad news, a Wall Street Journal reporter did a story on successful online internships. And a lot of the students that she chose to interview and the employers for that article were students in our program, either the Washington Semester Program or the GAP program. So we thought that students might be interested in, and employers and parents might be interested in hearing from, as Adam has labeled you, the pioneers, people who are trying this for the first time. And so that is the reason for this series of webinars that we're doing. We're really happy to have 5 of our students, our summer students, here today. We have Lauren Collins and Sydney Goggins from Spelman University, Oliver Hickling-Khoury from Emory University, Kate Elizabeth Kalin from Gonzaga University, and Sage Taylor from the University of Portland. So you will be hearing from all of them about what they're doing this semester in their internships. And I'm going to pass it along to Amy to talk about how this all works.
Great. Thanks so much for that introduction, Terrell. So back in 1947, Harry Truman was president. The World War II had ended. It was the beginning of the Cold War, and American University's Washington Semester Program was born. So now, over 7 decades later, we're going strong, putting students in the front of the action in Washington, D.C. Certainly, 2020 looks really different than over 70 years ago in DC. I happen to live in the AU neighborhood. I can assure you that whether you're going to even make us a visit, depending on the format of your experience with AU in the fall, whether you're 100% remote, hybrid, and experiencing, you know, a little bit of interaction with us, we certainly welcome all of that. Or perhaps resident here in Washington, D.C., you're in strong hands with AU's programs. Again, so this mother program, Washington Semester, is the umbrella for GAP and mentorship and our GAP Plus, all of our experiential education programs. In joining this substantive group of programs, you know that you're coming to a collection of programs that are supported by about 50,000 alumni in our long history. And we use the power of our contacts, including over 3,000 employer contacts. I'm in regular touch with the internship supervisors who the students are going to be talking about, and hundreds, even thousands of others, as we plan for the fall and spring semesters ahead. Know that in coming to our program, we work with you step by step to ensure that you have polished credentials, so your resume and cover letter shine, and so you know the insider tips on the way that employers are looking at the candidates and the way they're selecting the right students. For example, we put students in a virtual resume book. The colleagues on this call with you and the students also are the benefits of we're all supporting together this community of professional development and learning, where the first step in applying is to get your resume and cover letter in shape. Following that, we coach you with interviews, and then in the placement process, I kind of spoon feed you the internship leads and priority openings that you'll be applying to whether they are 100% virtual or have a spin on that format. So in coming to this program, rest assured, every student lands a placement. When students are motivated to do the engagement and the search, they land successfully. In a moment, I'm going to be turning it back over to Terrell and to my colleagues here, but let me just leave you with one last piece, and I'll be happy to be answering questions later. But let me tell you too that with our academic programs, AU's internships stand apart because we give employers the assurance that our students are motivated to do their best work because, you know, you're getting a grade for this experience. And students know that when they have a sign on the transcript of how they work, they're going to be more motivated to do their good work. And motivation is the key to a successful internship. You're going to hear stories about that shortly. And know too, when it comes to the excellence of a great internship, we heard from an employer this morning who was sort of teasing his students, saying the new email signature line for him is, "I am the best intern at creativeresearch.org." In other words, know that in coming to our program, our employers are really dedicated to teaching you and helping you do the best that you can when we're helping by establishing an experiential learning form with projects that are very clear and responsible, that are goal-oriented, and that help you learn skills that are going to land you a job after this program is complete and as you earn your degree. We're focused on career skills. I'm going to talk more on that soon. For now, I'm going to pass it back to you, Terrell, to get to the real heart of this discussion, and that is stories from students. So thanks to you, Terrell.
Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, the first student that we're going to hear from is Lauren Collins from Spelman.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm a rising senior economics major at Spelman College. I came across the Washington Semester Program after learning that my internship with the Federal Reserve Board was canceled due to the COVID response. But I'm glad that I came across this program because I'm earning credit for a course in U.S. Government Colloquium while also virtually interning with SOS Children's Villages, which is an international nonprofit, and I'm working with their philanthropy team.
Lauren, would you like to describe something that you're doing with SOS Children's Villages, what you're working on?
Yes, so on a day-to-day, given the COVID response, and especially because a lot of nonprofits are very important during this time, I research and compile current events, stories, and information regarding crisis response and different things going on in the different villages across the world. I draft reports on the impacts of gifts in villages and communities. So for example, I worked on a Nigeria report, and I actually didn't know at the time, but it's actually helped with securing a continued sponsorship of $70,000 for that village in Nigeria. So that was a really exciting project to work on.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. All right. Sydney?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney Goggins. I am a rising junior at Spelman College as well. I'm an English major with a film minor. So for me, and I'm currently in the program right now this summer. So I currently am an intern for American Forum, which is a nonprofit media organization. Same with Warren. I was going to have an internship in London, but due to COVID, I was kind of sad and disappointed, but then Spelman sent the email about the program, so I just took it, and here I am. So as an intern at American Forum, we get the freedom to choose what we want to do. So right now, I'm currently working on a podcast for my internship. We actually secured an interview with someone by the name of Monty Washington. He is a motivational speaker as well as an actor. And so our podcast is going to be centered on voting and how to get Generation Z to vote. I'm currently trying to get a writer from the show Insecure, as well as trying to get other people from different shows and get people from the academia realm. So I also plan to work on a project centering around HBCUs and all women colleges, just to talk about how does the administration, they're going to get their students to vote, and just talk about voter suppression. So some tasks that I have done so far is I have wrote an article about Juneteenth that has been published with about 3 newspaper publications. I've also wrote an article on Generation Z voting, and I had a radio interview for the article from a station in Savannah, Georgia. So I think one of the good things about having this internship remotely is that I've actually kind of upended my communication skills, just having to know like when and how to communicate effectively. And even though this is a virtual platform, it's actually helped me in learning how to be diligent and just having to combat this through this adversity. But one thing I just kind of want you guys to take away from it is that take initiative, take risk, and just stay outside your comfort zone, because I promise you that that's really the only way you can grow.
Okay. You've really had quite a networking experience this summer, haven't you? Sydney was one of the students that was interviewed for the Wall Street Journal article and has done several of these webinars for us as well. All right, thank you. Oliver?
Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver Hicklin-Corey, and I'm in the U.S. Government Colloquium. I'm a rising junior at Emory University studying economics and political science. My summer internship at the moment is with Public Citizen, which is a nonprofit consumer rights and progressive advocacy group. I'm really passionate about getting money out of politics, as I think it's one of the most important issues facing our generation at the moment. And this is one of the issues that I'm working with my internship at Public Citizen. So at the moment, we're working to ensure that there's sufficient funding in the next COVID stimulus bill so that states can carry out safe elections during the pandemic. This means that they're able to enact measures such as vote by mail, early voting, and PPE for poll workers. And so some of my work has been being involved with research. So I've been involved with legislative research. We've targeted certain states, and so we're looking at what's going on in those states. You know, how are they adapting to the pandemic? How are they addressing the situation in terms of how they're going to conduct their elections? And I've also been focused on local DC politics. So during the June 2nd primary in DC, a lot of issues happened, such as, you know, long lines at the polls. And so one of my tasks was to write a testimony for my supervisor, because she was going to speak at a hearing held by one of a DC lawmaker, you know, about the issue. And so, yeah, that's some of the work that I've been involved with.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
Hi, my name's Kate Kalin, and I'm a rising junior at Gonzaga University, and I'm doing the Washington semester summer program right now. And I am majoring in political science, international relations, and Spanish. And my internship is at the National Academy of Public Administrations, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, congressionally chartered academy. So we do research for Congress and other people in government so that they can try and make the most informed decisions regarding the United States. And my major project right now is a project about agile government. So most of my work involves doing research and writing up papers for my supervisor. And the research that I do will be used later in the November 2020 election. The presidential administration will be briefed with the research that I've done, and it will be enacted throughout the federal government, which has been really exciting because it feels like I'm making a true and relevant impact on the government. Some of the things that I've taken away from my internship, because I was very nervous about doing it remotely and even considered dropping the program just because I wasn't sure I was going to get the right experience out of it. But I've definitely gotten an amazing experience. The National Academy has over 900 fellows, and our fellows are people that are very distinguished in their area of expertise. And we have 2 or 3 times a week, all the interns get to sit in with a new fellow, and we get to talk with them and network with this fellow. So I've been able to expand my networking abilities as well as my professional skills. And we do weekly lunch hours over Zoom. So I've gotten to meet all of the people I'm working with, which I've really loved. And every 2 weeks, we do a themed happy hour on Fridays, which has been really fun. And it's been a good way for me to relax and feel like I'm connecting with the people that I'm doing my work with. And overall, it's been an amazing experience, and I've gotten to advance a lot of my skills, and I'm really happy that I stuck with it.
Okay, thank you, Kate. We actually had your supervisor on the earlier webinar, so we've gotten to hear sort of both sides of that. And one thing that she said any of our interns can just walk into, the president's office and talk, that there's no sort of boundaries there for students who are working with them. Okay, Sage.
Hey everyone, so yeah, Sage, I'm interning this summer. God, it still makes me so happy to get to say this. I'm interning this summer for the NAACP, which my kind of line that I've developed is any summer to internship for the NAACP is a great opportunity, but this summer especially is just absolutely amazing. So the work I'm doing, I'm with the Washington Bureau, which is their legislative branch. There's about six, 7, or 8 of us interns, and we each pick a different legislative topic. And then over a period of about 2 months, so the entirety of the program, we put together a report on that subject. So I'm doing curbing gun violence. So again, a very, very relevant topic. And as we kind of, each day that I do research, I was just thinking about this before the webinar began, each day that I'm doing research is another day when I become just more and more passionate about this subject and more enthusiastic for continuing this work. And something that's been so great about this internship is all the different paths it's opened up for me. It's put me in touch with multiple people, both in DC and here in my own home state of Oregon, who I'm hoping to work with post-internship to continue the work I'm doing. And that ranges everything from more internship opportunities to volunteer opportunities to hopefully that beautiful end goal of job opportunities. So from that regard, it's phenomenal. And I just also want to touch on just the general idea of remote internships. When I started doing my remote internship this summer, I kind of thought like, oh, this is, interesting experience. Well, the first thing I thought was, it's a shame I'm not going to be in DC. But with response to that, what I'll say is, I'm probably attending more meetings than I would be if I was actually in DC and getting to network with more people, because it's hard to avoid meetings when they're all just taking place, like for me, from whether it's your downstairs office or like for me, your bedroom. So that's just an absolutely phenomenal thing to know there are so many open doors and available to meet with so many people. But the technological advancements and just kind of discoveries that people are making with remote internships, and I've heard other people within my office and other colleagues at AU say similar things, I really think remote internships are going to be the future. And so to be able to point out a resume and say that I was involved with a remote internship at the Advent when these were first starting out, years down the road is going to be absolutely essential. So I would really just encourage whoever watching this to not think of as a remote internship as something that's lesser. It's I can't do a real internship, so I have to do this. But in itself, it's this amazing, really powerful experience. So yeah, happy to answer any questions now, or if you want to reach out to me afterwards. Thank you.
I think you made a great point there at the end, Sage, in talking to parents and students about, who are unsure about doing this on the phone. They say, but we want an in-person internship. I said, well, everyone does, but the way that the real work is happening right now is all online. The real world is more this than that at the moment and for the foreseeable future. So that's a great point. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marissa. I see we have a couple of questions in the box.
Great, thank you, Terrell. Okay, for this first question, Amy, I think you might be able to help us out. Somebody asked about the grading for the internship component of our programs. They asked, is there a grading rubric that employers fill out? Will you just speak a little bit more about the internship credit component? Oh, yes.
Pardon me, there's a little background noise here. So when it comes to the grading, we do a dual interpretation, both from the internship site supervisors as well as from the internship faculty. So you're getting assessed from the academic perspective when you have a reflective journal, for example, when you come to class and engage in discussions on what's happening with, let's say, Black Lives Matter and the fundraising campaign that you did connected to that, and you can give voice to some specific examples. So you'll have a chance from the academic point of view to stand back and reflect, but then as well for roughly 40% of your grade, your internship site supervisor will receive an evaluation to assess your performance in the work that you're doing and that regular day-to-day internship experience. So again, the internship assessment comes from the site supervisor as well as from the internship class professor. And we view this as an ideal complement to get that the more academic viewpoint from a professor who knows the field, who often has that long-term experience with that internship site, so they know the supervisors and they can assess based on what X supervisor is telling you, what they also know about the site. So it allows you to move forward towards your homeschool degree. Many students in our program are non-AU students, and so they're taking the credit from AU and transferring that to another school. And we provide the syllabi to academic advisors at different home schools, so you can carry this credit towards your degree requirements. Also, in a way, it's often viewed similar to a study abroad program because this is experiential education. And so when you look at the syllabus, you see from the day-to-day interaction when you're learning competencies with oral communication and analytical thinking and written communication research and all these components, that they're all adding up to, frankly, the things that you need for a liberal arts education, as well as what you need when you graduate to the real world. So the academic and the grade and the credit that you're earning makes this program distinctive, and often employers are looking for that when they sign you up for an internship. I'm often sending employers an example of a certification of enrollment that indeed you're bona fide in our AU program.
Great, thank you, Amy. Adam, I'm hoping you can help me out with this next one. For our students who are participating in one of our programs 100% virtually, whether that be our GAP students or somebody in our mentorship or WSP programs who elect to do it remotely, do they still have the same access to campus, student life, AU organizations as other AU students?
You're on mute too.
Remote internships, that's going to be the phrase. You're on mute. And also cats walking across your keyboard. It's a great question. Yes. So if you are remote, if you're taking, for instance, the GAP program and you are fully online, you can take advantage of the opportunities that AU is offering students this fall. A lot of those will be online to protect the health and safety of students, but there will be opportunities to have in-person stuff, and we're going to make sure all students in all our programs know about the stuff that's in person that the university is promoting. The one thing that's really interesting, and I think some of you have heard about it, is over fall break this year, we're doing this professional development long weekend, and details are still coming in, but that would be a great opportunity. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to have guest speakers, and we're going to have workshops, and the idea of developing you as a professional for whatever career you're interested in. And so we're hoping our school at Specs is hoping to get involved with that as well, but all that kind of thing and everything else that students on campus will have access to, you will have access to as well.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, another one for you, Amy, and perhaps our students can chime in with any advice they have as well. Somebody asked, how should we approach applying to internships once we've been accepted to the program?
Oh, what a great question. So I hold online advising webinars every Tuesday evening and Thursday, Friday afternoons. We have an internship guide that's snazzy that we think that helps the information jump off the page. So you know, for example, that the standard way to apply to internships in Washington, D.C. is to email your resume and cover letter and then follow up. So I coach students and train them and start from the first moment they deposit and get serious about the program to polish up their materials. So step one is resume and cover letter review. And then the next step is to look at our large pool of contacts. And then I help filter out the most active contacts that are in an eager position to be recruiting for fall 2020. And so I send those to you, and you get privileged access to our internship web, where, for example, you would hear that AEI is keen to hire students. And yesterday, the Association for Diplomatic Studies and Training conveyed enthusiasm to recruit right now. And so many other sites that we're active partners with are reaching out to me. So there's a good conduit. There's just an active flow of information. We keep students on a clear path from the time of resume and cover letter review to internships to placements to make sure that you're making steady progress. And we'll meet you where you are, whether you're someone who's good at reading information, or if you'd rather talk about it, or if you'd rather get an email. We're communicating with you in all formats, and we have a lot of ways of reviewing. Again, if you're not logging into our system, or if you haven't submitted your resume, know that you're going to get a call from us because we're here and well equipped to take you through that process. But I'd love to hear some more examples from students because, you know, I'm the systems person, but I think often the examples from students are really sometimes the best way to discover how to land a great position. So anyone want to chime in with your examples?
I'd love to chime in on that. I'd say, well, Amy is a great help. I should really be interrupting myself now to thank her for all she's done. Because of her and the resources she provides, I would say for the internship search, you are starting 5, 10, 15 miles ahead of everyone else. The key that falls on you is you have to advocate for yourself. That's the most important thing. There wasn't one internship offer, because I applied to about, I want to say 15 or 16 different places. I think I might be overshooting that, but honestly, I think I'm lowballing it. And from that, I think I got about 5 or 6 offers. None of those offers, I didn't get any of those offers sitting around waiting for someone to reach out to me. You have to be very, very proactive. And there is I'll say this, there's a smart, and Amy can help you develop this, there's a smart and polite way to be aggressive in the internship hunt. And that is what, in my experience, that is what employers want to see. They want to see you expressing passion. And I'll say this, expressing passion, not just for having an internship in general, but having passion for that specific internship. One story that shocks me is I was in one interview, and it was approaching kind of a more casual conversation approach, and the interviewer mentioned to me that I was the only person who had applied to that internship who in their cover letter had said something specific about the internship, which shocked me because I kind of thought that was, I thought that was a low bar. Like that shouldn't impress, you shouldn't be impressed by me that I did that. I thought that was a given for everyone. So you have to be exact and you have to be aggressive, but you also have to be passionate about it. You can't just willy-nilly send out like 10 group emails. Each email you send to an employer, it needs to have its own, it needs to have your voice, and it needs to speak specifically to why you want that internship. But yeah, that idea of if you don't hear back from someone the first time for an email, or even the second time, that definitely doesn't mean they're not interested in you. It means that they're living in the same world that you're living, you know, running this nonprofit, or helping run a government agency or an office dealing with COVID-19. And you just need to do something, whether it's a third email, whether it's calling and leaving a voicemail, just continue doing that to really stand out.
Yes, absolutely, Sage. Thank you. Do any of the other students want to chime in with some advice about the internship search? Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, I can add, again, like Sage said, Amy was really helpful. And again, it goes along with being very assertive in the process. I know I applied to about 7 internships. I got offers from about 3 or 4, I believe. So there's not really a scare of like you're not going to get offers, because like how Amy explained, we're in like this system. So the employers are kind of like looking for us because we're AU students. But I know I applied to an organization and they actually weren't taking interns at the time, but they said that they would keep my email on file and email me later. And there was another organization that actually had closed their applicant pool, but I applied anyway, and they took me for an interview and I got an offer. So it's really just about how bad you want it and how assertive you are, and really just staying on top of things.
Thank you, Lauren. That's great. All right, maybe we'll move on to our next question now. Amy, I think that you also will be able to help us with this one. Someone asked, once a student has been accepted to the program, what comes next? How does the internship start off? How does the process begin? Amy, I know that our programs are a little bit different perhaps with how the internships process starts, but do you want to talk a little bit about just those early stages once a student has been admitted?
Yeah, great. Indeed, you did say it well, Marissa. There is some variance on the program, but let me find the common themes across the board in all of our Washington semester programs with internships. So first off, again, the initial stage is that we have conversations with you. For all these students on the line here, I did begin, I sent everyone a friendly email. It might have been a little on the text heavy side. So I send some written instructions on what to expect. So first off, you'll kind of get a map of kind of what's ahead. So you'll have that as a guidepost to look back at. In addition to this text and an email, you'll get this internship guide straight away. And it's almost like a magazine, and you can take a virtual flip through that, or you can look at it in hard copy. And then the next stage is really engagement of a back and forth constant communication between you and me and my colleagues. You will be assigned a reviewer who's going to work with you in a personalized way to ensure that your resume and cover letter are top notch. So that comes again after you've deposited and when it gets more serious. And know that when you're in our resume book, after you have meet our approval and once you get loaded in our book, employers look at that more seriously when there's this hand-in-hand approach where you're applying and then I'm also advocating. So after the intake conversation and you have your materials ready to send and you're out there networking, know that on the AU side, we're advocating for you. And so let's say, you know, it's fun to now to think about the progress that the students on the line have made. And because I so remember Lauren coming in and thinking, wow, our superstar is going to get every internship she applied to. Of course, she did get so many internships, as did so many students, but it's not often a measure of someone has X award or a certain GPA. It's often more a measure of this persistence that Sage mentioned, and I think I've heard others mention as well. So we're going to keep coaching you through the process, and ultimately you will land in a position from an interview. You'll decide on what feels right. We have evaluations from the internships that are available for you to review. And I also give you my feedback on what past students have said. So I might not necessarily, it might not be written down that Joe Smith is a type A supervisor, and from the interactions with you, I know you're more type B. So I might say, you know, before you accept this, let's talk about what that means. So the counseling process is pretty iterative, and you get a lot of hands-on coaching. So I guess to sum all of that up, it's a really engaged process where you're getting a lot of high touch and high tech info, that we have a pretty snazzy system where we have a lot of data, but ultimately what matters most is the interaction that you're getting and that support from my colleagues on the line. We divvy up responsibilities. I do manage a lot of data, and so I'm not the only person who reviews resumes. Marissa and Adam and Terrell all take a share of this as well. So we're making sure that you're successful at every stage, and we have measures in place to ensure that you're making progress and ultimately that you land in a placement.
Thanks, Amy. That's a great. All right, for the next question, I was hoping we can turn this to our student panelists. Now, I know, Sydney, you mentioned it in your introduction. You gave a little bit of advice on how to succeed and do well in your internship, but I was wondering if we could go around to each student and ask, what advice would you give to somebody who is about to start a remote internship through one of our programs this fall? Let's see. Oliver, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. The one thing I would say is be able and definitely have some initiative. You know, I was like some of the others who were saying, I was a bit worried about the whole remote process. But you know, like with the way that my supervisor and the way that AU, and shout out to Amy for helping me out, has been really amazing. And so, yeah, just in the work, being adaptable to, you know, to ask for your supervisor. And if you ever come into a situation where you don't really know what you're supposed to do, or you don't feel like you have that much work to do, it's really we encourage, you know, to reach out to your supervisor and say, hey, like, how can I help you do this or that? And that's like a really good look, I would say.
Thanks, Oliver. Yeah, Sydney, do you want to go next?
Yes, so I had mentioned about going outside of your comfort zone. Like for me, when they asked me to do a radio interview, I was like, what? I've never done that before. And I was actually terrified, but I decided to just take the opportunity and just go for it. And I think that's the thing, it's just going for it. Cause I think if you say no to opportunities, that you just won't, I guess it just won't be a very good impression to your supervisor. And I think that you'll also be disappointing yourself if you don't take those opportunities. So along with just taking initiative, I think you need to take initiative like in yourself and just make sure that you are being a yes person, and that you never know what type of skills and opportunities that you may get by saying yes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sydney. Kate, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I've found that making connections has been the most important part for me. So both my boss and the research assistant on the project I'm working on have masters in the degree that I'm getting right now. And by calling them or like setting up meetings with them just to kind of check in and make sure I'm doing things correctly, I've formed a really good relationship with them. And my boss has now advocated for me for a master's program and has set me up with the dean, and I've had a chance to talk to him about the program. So it's worked out really well for me and has given me amazing opportunities in the future. And that goes for many other people as well, such as the fellows, which I talked about. Just making these connections make it so that my work feels like I'm there in person. It feels like I'm getting that connection I need. And it also allows me to use these connections in the future to either get a job or get a recommendation or reach out for research that I need. So that's been the most helpful and most important part to me.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Let's see. Lauren, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll add that this virtual internship is definitely a time where you should definitely not sell yourself short. Like I weekly I meet with my supervisor, but at first, like, I was noticing that there were meetings, but I wasn't in the meeting. But all I had to do was ask my supervisor to join in on the meeting and listen to it. Even sometimes I don't know what they're saying, but eventually you catch on, and you might hear of a project that somebody's working on that you really have an interest in. And from that meeting, you can just reach out to whoever. And it also gives you a chance to, like, put a face to the name of people that you work with or that might not be in the department that you work in. So I've definitely gotten used to, like, you know, putting my best foot forward and having to ask, like, can I do this? Can I do that? Because this is a different, you know, playing field for supervisors as well, and companies and organizations. Like, having a virtual intern isn't the norm for them either. And so when they're doing their virtual work, they usually aren't thinking about a virtual intern. And, like, because they're not seeing you, they sometimes you might not really come across their mind each day or each second of the hour because you're not sitting, like, close to them in an office. But just reminding them that you're there and that you're willing to help and you want to learn and just, you know, be involved.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. And Sage, any last advice to add to?
Yeah, I mean, I think my colleagues here covered it. I would just touch on the day-to-day aspects of the internship. Two pieces of advice I would give are, the first is that it's very important to, I know personally, for me, I can sometimes get lost in the fact that, oh, I'm at home, look at all these lovely carefree distractions around me. So I think it's really important to still be structuring your time. And remember, I mean, I loved what my director said, my supervisor said at the NAACP. He said, you know, to all the interns, he said, the research you're doing, this isn't just an academic exercise. You're not doing this report so then it can go sit in the library where, you know, two different academics will read it for a PhD thesis every 5 years. Like, no, the work you're doing, the research you're doing is going to have real life consequences. And so just remember that when you're approaching your work, just to really be putting your time and passion into it. And, like, just because you're not in the office and, like, you're operating from, like, your house, that's not an excuse to slack on the work.
Very true. Thanks, Sage. Okay, another question we have, and hopefully each of our students can answer this one as well. How have you been able to connect with your colleagues and the people at your internship in this remote setting? Can you talk about your experience with networking or just getting to know your team? Let's see, do we want to start with Kate? Do you want to start this one?
Yeah, sure. I kind of talked about this at the beginning a little bit, but honestly, it's been the academy that's done a great job to ensure that I've been able to connect with my colleagues. So we do, every week, we have a lunch. It's called Lunch Bunch, and we all get together and we eat our lunch and just kind of hang out on Zoom together. And we do our every 2-week happy hour. That's also really fun. But another great resource is an app called Slack, and it allows us to message back and forth with our colleagues. And this has been kind of a great way for me to connect with my interns, just because we're not all working on the same project. So all the interns, we have a group chat in Slack, and we're able to talk and ask questions that maybe we necessarily don't want to ask our supervisor because or, like, hey, can anyone find this on Outlook? So we are able to talk to each other that way. So I just say that if you have a question or you're worried that you're not making the right connection, reach out to either your supervisor or another intern, and don't be afraid to set up a meeting, because all of the people that are on your team are going to want to help you and want to talk to you and build that connection. So I've had a really positive experience with it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Let's see. Lauren, do you want to go next?
Yeah, similar to Kate, I've actually used Slack in the past internship, but I also use Teams now, Microsoft Teams. So that's an easy way to like connect with like your team. I know I work on the philanthropy team, so we kind of have our own group chats, and I can communicate with my supervisor. Like each morning, I'm like, hey, I'm online, just so she knows that I'm up and doing things, and she can reach out to me. And also, just like how I mentioned earlier, being in meetings, and I know Adam actually mentioned to us the other week at Professional Development Day, engaging in like that pre-conference, pre-meeting like banter, just because it gives you, it gives life to the conversation, it gives life to your coworkers. Like we're not just robots that are doing the work that we're there to do, but just being able to like know who they are on a personal level has really helped me.
Lauren, I wish you were in here in the office with me, because I would, if you were my intern, I would take you out to lunch right now. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah, that is really, it's a really good point. Like you don't need much, but that those informal interactions make a big difference.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lauren. Let's see. Sage, do you want to chime in next?
Yeah, I love that point about kind of those informal interactions. I think it's always great to remind people that, at least for me personally, for my path and my goals, that one day you want to end up in DC. People love to say over virtually, they go, oh, if you're ever in DC, I take you out to pizza. I'd love to grab a beer with you. I'm over, for any parents watching, I'm over 21, so that's a fine thing for them to say to me. And when they say that, I always gotta go, well, okay, sir, what's your number? What's your email? Because I'd love, when I'm in DC, I'd love to take my treat, of course, but I'd love to take you up. I'd love to take you up on that offer. Hoping by the time it comes around, they've forgotten that I've said it would be my treat, and that it'll be on them. Unpaid internships, they're worth it. They really are, I swear. But yeah, so I would say there's that. There's also the internship from my group of interns that I'm working with, 8 or 9. We have a group chat, one with the supervisor, one without the supervisor. And I would say if the group chat without the supervisor is ever dead, it's so easy to, people love talking about what they're working on. All you have to do is just shoot off like one text, and they're like, hey guys, how are your projects going? Or like, hey, did anyone else go to that meeting? And bam, 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 responses are sure to fire back. And like I've built kind of even personal one-on-one relationships outside the group chat, where like if I see someone like in the group chat is like complaining about something that like I'm also dealing with, and like I'll message them separately and be like, hey, like, didn't want to cause a scene in the group chat, but like, can you believe what they said in that meeting or something? And like I built some really substantive friendships out of that, actually, which I'm really, really grateful for. So I think there's something to be said for that. Yes, there's importance for that networking within your supervisors and everything, but definitely, even though you're remote, you can definitely still like get to know people very easily and make friends.
That's great, Sage. Yes, it's definitely important to lean on your fellow interns if there are other interns in your organizations. Let's see. Sydney, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, we actually have an official team meeting like once a week on Tuesdays, but the work is very collaborative. So we have to like talk to our other colleagues. And I actually really love that about my internship, like the podcast. Like I'm working with 2 other interns, and we talk like twice a week about the podcast. And maybe we'll spend like a good 45 minutes talking about the podcast, but then we spend another hour just talking and just having good casual banter. We're also working on some fundraising initiatives. And so since there's these different teams, we get to talk to these different people about what they're working on and just talk to them about themselves. And I'm the type of person who just likes to learn about somebody else. And I just love conversation. That's just the type of person I am. So I really like how we have these different teams because I get to experience these new people within each sort of team. And that's what it's like over here at American Forum. Since it's just so collaborative, you really get to know everybody through the work.
Awesome. Thanks, Sydney. Oliver, anything else?
Yeah, so Slack is our primary way of communicating. With my internship, there's basically two offices in the campaign, and so every day we have meetings usually, and so in the morning I'll have a meeting with my office in DC, and then in the afternoon it's the meeting with the other group, and everyone's in that meeting. And yeah, like Lauren hit the nail on the head there. Like it's really important in those meetings just to have, you know, human moments with other people. It's been really cool getting to know my fellow interns. One thing that we've had at my internship is a weekly lunch and learn. And so all the interns, not just in the two offices where I'm working with, but like all the interns for a public citizen will call in, and there's, you know, there'll be someone high up in the organization who's just willing to talk with us for an hour about what they do, and they go into the details of their work. And so that's also been a really great way to get to know people. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Oliver. All right, I know we're getting a little bit close to 6, so I think I'm going to pass it back over to Adam at this point. You're on mute.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Marissa. I hope that we've met some of our goals here today, which is to give you some good specific information. Again, there's no roadmap at this point for what we're doing in terms of a lot of things in American society right now, but this is certainly one of them. And the quicker you are to learn the new rules of the road, the better off you're going to be. And so I really appreciate our students here today. You really, truly have given us a very honest and authentic set of experiences that I hope everybody can benefit from. And, you know, for those students, I know we have prospective students here as well as current students, but for prospective students, we do have some opportunities for you this fall in the spots in the Washington Semester Program, and also in our GAP program. And the Washington Semester Program is the full semester, and then the GAP program, we have spots for incoming first-year students, but then also current college students who, for one reason or another, have decided not to return to their home university. And so we will follow up and give you information on how to reach us if you're interested in doing those. Anything you want to add, Terrell? Got anything you want to? No. Okay.
I added a lot of things, but I was still on mute. So.
Oh, all right.
No, I just would like to say thank you to these students for taking your time and sharing your stories. It's always great to hear what you're doing, and hopefully we will hear from some of you who are out there in the audience. We're here to answer your questions if you think of them later. So please feel free to email washsem@american.edu or augap@american.edu. And we will be waiting to hear from you.
Okay, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Have a good
Thanks so
evening.
much.